Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are calling in or watching from, I should say, not calling in. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Mindset Show with myself, Anissa, and Brad. I'm just going to be pressing go live on Instagram for those ones that always join us on that side. And so, as you know, we are talking about the SMME and holding the mustard. Before we get into the context, and I'm going to hand over to my very passionate co-host Brad on this segment. I just want to say thank you to those that are always interacting and engaging with us here. Remember, this is not only about Brad and myself's voice speaking all the time. Please do interact, engage, share your stories, in particular to the topic or theme from today. And those that are watching the replay, we thank you for being here. We were just saying we cannot believe it's been a month since Brad and I kicked off the Hold the Mustard segment. So over to you, Brad.
Yeah, a whole month. It's hard to believe, but for me, what I love about time moving as quick as it does is that these sessions come at coming at the right time all the time, because we've actually positioned these sessions to be at month end, which for SMMEs is one of the most stressful times that we could face in a business, not only from a financial perspective, but because from a capacity perspective, because we're trying to finish off projects, get our invoicing in, get the stuff signed off so payments can come through, and then for us to move on to a new month. And also it's a very much a big spiritual month for many of us, and an opportunity for us to really sit back and spend a bit of time looking at ourselves and what we can do better, not only as SMMEs, but as human beings. But I loved what we spoke about in the last session about, understanding our success story and what it means for us and what we have to do as an SMME to be successful in our own right. And it becomes so important for us that once we understand the success and what that means for us, is to be able to then innovate and adapt. To be able to sit back and go, okay, I need to do these things. I need to move into this space. I have to do this as a human being to become the SMME that I want to be. And the problem for me, I don't know for you if it's been the same journey, is that sometimes that's not always 100% obvious. And then for me, the universe has this amazing way of kind of ripping that carpet out of you, under you, and going, you now need to adapt, or you now need to innovate. And it's usually this kind of really hectic moment or time in my space, and then I know, okay, these are the signs, and then I go and sit down and I innovate and adapt. So I'm looking really forward to talking around that today.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly attest to the fact that innovation is certainly, for me, it's not always a new product or service. It might very well just be, how do I think differently, right? Because if I'm thinking differently, I'm thinking more critically. If I'm thinking differently, I'm willing to be more open and transparent and bring people into the conversation rather than staying stuck and this is what's worked and tried and tested. So I'd love for us to delve into some of what you actually shared so beautifully in your article around what is innovation then? And then weave that into what is needed from an adaptability perspective when you're weaving that into innovation.
Well, I think innovation can mean a lot of different things for many of us. But it's strange for me because when I was in Cape Town, the last time we had our live session, I was in Cape Town, and I had the next day I met a lady called Lemez, and Lemez runs this kind of like spiritual oasis to help you deal with stress, to help you deal with shift in mindset, to help you deal with also, stress within the body, the actual physical body. And there's techniques that she was showing me and how this all works. And her biggest kind of problem in that moment was, I've got these amazing services and I've got these products that I can sell with these services, but I just don't know how to get to my client. And I've been trying this and I've been doing it for so long, and I've been knocking at the doors and nothing's coming through, and I'm at the point of giving up because I believe in my product. I believe in the service that I want to offer these potential clients, but I don't really know my customer or who actually my customer is. And I think this is where adaptation and innovation comes in. I think we need to constantly be quite critical on ourselves about how our relationship with our clients is evolving and molding, because that never stops. That grows. As you grow, your clientele grows. It morphs into something completely different. So for me, innovation is about the ability to sit back and go, I'm not living up to this success story, this vision that I had for my business. These are the things that I'm going to need to do to innovate in order for me to get to that point. So, for example, if you are on a journey and you are making your way up this hill and the road is no longer there, and you have to come up with some other way to get to that point that you're traveling to, you're going to have to start becoming innovative, because that traditional method is no longer there. And you've got to start thinking about, okay, how else can I get to that success point, for whatever that means for you as an SMME.
You've raised something which took me back to not even last month's session, but previously when we first met, when we first had our kickoff, and we spoke about being values aligned, right? And that's another big one for me that always comes up, because if we don't understand what our values are, what our success story is, who we are serving, we're not necessarily going to be talking to the right niche. So we try to be everything to everyone in our businesses. And depending on the context of what type of business you're running, if it's service related or product related, I think there's lots of merit in understanding the persona of that customer. What problem are you solving within that customer's environment? And in fact, I have this dispute often with entrepreneurs, whether I'm in an advisory role with them or whether I'm the coach. It's, what are you solving for your markets? Because once you understand that aspect, you can closely then link it to and get more innovative in your approach. And like I think you said Lamise is her name you met last month.
Yeah, Lamise. I
Depending
hope
on
I'm
who she
pronouncing
was, if it's Lamise, then is she Muslim?
Yeah, she's a Muslim lady. Super,
Yeah,
super
okay. Then
awesome.
it's Lamise. It's Lamise.
Yeah,
Some will say
she's an
Lamise,
awesome
some will
Muslim.
say Lamise, whatever, and
Yeah.
others will say Lamise. Tomato,
Okay.
tomato, neither here nor there. But
Yeah.
the point I'm illustrating right now, Brad, is that when we're going out to market to try and be innovative, often what entrepreneurs mistake is that they think that they have the best solution already without having done some groundwork and getting maybe innovative in their approach and talking to customers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And going
100%.
out there and getting creative and getting access to understand what is the market actually saying or wanting. And is this problem that we say we are solving, as you said, people evolve, customers evolve. Is the
Yeah.
problem that we're solving for the customer still the same one? How is that problem changed for the customer so that we can innovate accordingly to meet where the customer is now?
Yeah. I think, the thing with us in the market we're in now, in the South African context, and I hear you, because it's a big thing. A lot of us wade into the space of being an SMME, sometimes not by choice. And we're
Yes,
sitting with a scenario that we're doing it for survival. And when you're in that space of survival, you're not really positioned to sit and be able to ponder and wonder, okay, this is the next step. You're not really strategic. You're surviving.
yes. Oh, is that my connection, Brad? I hope that's not my connection. Brad, can you hear me? Okey-dokes. Let me try and message Brad. Brad, can you hear me? Okay, so for those that are possibly listening in, can you tell me if you are able to hear me? We are trying to distinguish if the connectivity issue is on my side or Brad's. I've just lost Brad as from the studio, so we'll carry on with the conversation in the meantime. Just to touch base around the innovation components, I think that we often think it's got to be a shiny object, that this object needs to be something that has to be something new, something that's going to catch the eye. But it's more about speaking to our customers and understanding that target market. In the meantime, let me see where Brad is. I'm going to be messaging him. For the Instagram audience that have joined Imra Workshop and Nana Punu, thank you for being here. Let me see where my co-host is in the meantime. Okay. Okay, he's back. He's back. Brad, at your stage.
Hey.
Hello, Brad. Are you
I
back?
promise you, it was not me. I didn't touch anything. I didn't do anything. It was just, I'm just checking my connectivity and it was wobbling a little bit. So I apologize. Sorry, man. I don't know why, but over the last
Listen.
talks to innovation, right? It's just sometimes you want to run and stuff is not running with you. But I'm back, and that's the important thing.
So I was talking to the audience anyway, and I was talking about often we think it's a shiny object. So let's use this practical example because I think it's pretty apt, right? Connectivity in South Africa, I'm not sure about outside of SA, is not always the best. Our bandwidth isn't always the best.
Yeah.
I know recently there was noted the undersea cables is causing connectivity challenges the world over. So I don't actually believe this issue is just limited to our country. But let's think about how innovative we could become with this, right? Is it really the shiny objects that we would need? What's the backup if these sort of things happen? Because we always jump to think we need the shiny objects for innovation.
Yeah.
Maybe you can share some more thoughts around that because I don't
Yeah,
believe it's getting the more shinier object. It's the same when we're starting our businesses. We think we must have the website. We think we must have all the bells and whistles, but yet we're still not very clear on who we're serving and what we're solving. Talk
yeah.
to me about that, Brad.
Okay, well, it all stems from when you start right from the beginning. I'm talking about when you're a startup SMME and you're establishing your businesses, understanding what problem you solve. Where do you fit in the great scheme of things as a business? And as a business owner, what role do you play in ensuring that people are aware that you solve that problem? That's where you, in my view, that is where we start. But that walks side by side with you as an individual having a success story for your business. In other words, understanding what does success look like for you, because that's going to dictate the market you play in, your pricing. It's going to dictate where you position your business, because you're hunting for something as a business owner, and then your business has its own goals and objectives that it has to resolve. So when it comes to innovation, I am not a big fan of saying, okay, we have to have these 10 things in place before I start my business. Because for me, you're spending so much time on those 10 things, you might not even need them. I always believe in go to market with the minimum amount you need at the standards required in order to have your business operational. So we have this issue when we support SMMEs or we support startups that have received funding and have received great, massive contracts from corporates or government. And the first thing they do is they go out and they get themselves a new bucky, because the old bucky just wasn't right. It just didn't perform like it should do. And that for me always concerns me, because do you really need this? Is this part of your success story? Do you really, really need this in your business right now at this point? So case in point with the internet, yeah, I lost you for a few minutes. I've got backup on my phone. So I've innovated around that problem as much as I can. But if Vodacom, who I'm with, his entire service goes down in the area, I can't connect. So there are going to be times when you can innovate to a point, and then you're going to have to obviously rely on the environment around you. But innovation for me is really important, because now I'm going to sit back and I'm going to go, okay, I don't want to have these live sessions and the threat of losing Anissa and the audience. So this is what I need to do to ensure that doesn't happen. And I evolve and I adapt around that. And I continuously push forward. But the new iPhone, the latest Mercedes-Benz, the nice premises, I think you need to be very wary of that. It's a trap that you fall into. You know, I need to look a certain way. I need to do this. It's completely evolved away from that. You know, when I started out and started my business, you had to have your own premises. It wasn't actually even on a wish list. It was a requirement. No client would sign with you as an agency if you didn't have premises. They would literally come and, yeah, it was like that for me.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they would come and view your premises. It was part of their meet the team and view the premises. So, that was a requirement in that point those years ago. Now, I can have a meeting with a potential client in a coffee shop, for example, and not once will the client say, oh, but by the way, can I come and see your premises? They might say, can I meet your team? And we would then do that. So now we've adapted and we've innovated as an agency, because we don't want those large overheads and we don't want to be bound by one address. Because we're African-based, we have to be mobile. So we have satellite boardrooms scattered all over the country and across Africa that we tap into when we need them to have group meetings. So when a client comes to us and they come into this environment and they go, oh, these are not your offices, you share these offices. And we're like 100%. It's part of our success story. In fact, this is the reasoning why we do it. And the client is always bowled over and like, whoa, I love that. I love that adaptability. I love that flexibility. I love that ability for you guys to focus on me as a client rather than worrying about, what type of offices, furniture that I have. Is it zhuzh enough? Is it fancy enough for myself and for my client?
That's spot on, Brad. I mean, because we both work across different programs with entrepreneurs, right? And we have these beautiful discovery conversations with them in terms of, if we bring them onto the program, how might we serve them? Because they're our customer. And often they have this big idea that, so I'll use an example, a practical example. This particular lady was maybe in the health and wellness industry, and she was doing sort of massages and facials and the beauty industry rather. Okay. Now, we don't need to have a premises for that any longer, because mobile little clinics have popped up and they go to organizations. And this particular individual was very set on the idea of being at a location, one that is going to be in a tranquil environment, that when the person is en route to have their beauty treatments, that they're going to get into the energy. And it's not all wrong. But is it that that's necessary at the start? No, you don't need that, because you can create that environment when you're setting up that particular treatment wherever you might be doing it from. And so that's where I think entrepreneurs do get. That was one practical example. And then there might be another one that says, well, I am doing different products that I'm selling, and I have this various items, and they think that they need a premises to go and showcase. But there's e-commerce. We don't, in this day and age, need to be having a premises to showcase our products, because the world has shifted. And so the entrepreneurial mindset is still very stuck in the shiny objects world. And that is why I wanted you to come and share with us what would be the bare minimum that is needed for an entrepreneur, regardless of what it is that they're selling? What do you think that they need just at the start?
Oh man, I think first of all, the key is a company name. So unless you're a celebrity, unless you are the brand, you the product, a company name that resonates with the solution you're coming up with to the problem your client has or customer has. So that name becomes quite important. You don't have to go to any fancy designer. For now, you can pop onto the web and you can get AI tools to actually develop a nice brand visual around that name. And then from there, when you look at your customer or client and you go, well, my customer client is mainly on Instagram. My suggestion would be is don't spend money on a website right now. Go onto Instagram, create a business page, and start sharing the solutions that you have as a business. Start sharing content around the problem your client or customer is having, and start having a discussion. You can do that immediately. You can literally go onto Instagram, open up a business page, put your branding on there, and start building an identity for your business. Bare minimum. Bare minimum.
Exactly, right?
You don't need a, I mean, if you've got a nice phone, you don't even have to have a great phone. I mean, you can have a phone you buy from Pep. I mean, that you can just take calls on if you need to. But look, if you want to access social media, I would suggest a semi-decent phone, which you can buy secondhand. If it's got a cracked screen, let it be. Computer-wise, you just need a basic computer, unless you're like myself, who does a lot of, sometimes I do a little bit of design and development work. I need a PC that can handle that. But again, if you're not in that space, just get a basic PC, just get something really, really basic. It doesn't have to be an Apple product right now. And the one thing about the premises, I did that. When I started the agency, I was all about the premises. I had this vision of walking through this foyer and having this two-layered building and having my team. As I walked in, I could see the team. But Anissa, do you know what that costs? And it's not just the revenue. It's the time that you've got to put aside away from your client, focusing on propping that dream up. So my success story at that point was around brick and mortar instead of being around what do I want as a human being out of that.
Yes. And how are you going to best serve who it is that you're serving? It wasn't about that building, but because at the time, the industry standard was that, we fall into that trap. I want to let the listeners in on a secret, because you were talking about cell phones and it doesn't have to be an Apple. So I have 2 laptops, okay? Only because as you use a laptop for a certain period of time, the processing power of that laptop diminishes, and your memory reduces, and so it's not necessarily operating in the way that it should. And then at the same time, this particular laptop that I was using for my lives, the camera gave up. The newer laptop, which was fast and yes, it's like a good laptop, good quality camera, etc. Unfortunately, the camera is embedded into the keyboard. So the moment I want to use the camera, it actually doesn't show my face straight on. It actually just shows my chin. And even though I elevate the thing with what do you call those stands, the laptop stands, still doesn't serve the trick. And now let me tell you, that laptop is close on almost 30,000 Rand in South African rands.
Oh.
And I'm not using it. Even for my lives, I am using a cell phone.
Yeah.
And so do I stop going live because I don't have the right shiny object? And yes, let me tell you, I'm exploring buying a webcam. I think Brad and I were chatting about it when he was here. I was looking at what is the best webcam, and I asked a friend that works in the telecoms industry, and he's like, 4K, Ultra HD, this and that and that. And I'm like, but hold on. What is the intentionality behind these lives? Why is Brad and I coming up on once a month to have this conversation? Because we want to be sharing with you what are those pitfalls that you can fall into by thinking you're needing to be investing in bigger, innovative type of products or services that are going to be bringing you? Is it going to bring you revenue? That's the question you're going to have to ask. Is it serving your
Yeah.
client?
Yeah, money, hey? Money is a big thing. And I think you know what, it's natural to want to have the right tools. You know, don't get me wrong, but I think we need to put a little bit more, we need to put a little bit more intent behind, or thought maybe behind the intention to buy $100,000 laptop, opposed to getting something similar, maybe a different brand at a cheaper price.
Yeah.
So price hunting becomes really important. And even when you do shift in the space, we become a successful SMME, you're always going to have to be price pointing and checking, because revenue will always be an important element in your business. But the key for me is, we're talking around the SMME space. So that's the small to medium-sized enterprises, even considering the micro guys out there. And when you're in that space, yes, success is defined. The definition's the 50 mil turnover annually. That defines us. That gives us the bracket from 0 to 50. But even if you are doing 50, revenue is still very important for your business. The bottom line, the profit that you make in your business, is still very important. So we need to become more price savvy and need to understand that, part of our success story as business owners, we have to understand that this is an incredibly long journey. Even if you hit the jackpot and you get a great job and your business booms and you just scoot really upwards in your first and second year, you still have to be conservative. You have to really understand the importance of having the right equipment at the right time for your business. So it is disheartening when you do work with SMMEs and when they do show a bit of profit, and instead of investing in the right tools, they're going off and doing, ego purchases. And you have to pull them back and go, look, I understand why you're doing it. I mean, being an SMME is really difficult. You just want to spoil yourself and you want to walk around kind of showing the world that you're the success. But your success story should never really be built off the things, the assets, the material things. It should be bought off the feeling that you get when you believe you've reached that success point. So in my case, sorry, you want to?
No, go for it. I want to hear your case, and then I'll share my own mistakes.
Yeah, no, look, there's many, actually, not far and few. There's so many, and I mean, we've spoken offline about, we're still learning, and I think these sessions are not about two experts coming in and sharing their perfection. I mean, Anissa and I bump our heads on a daily basis, and we share those journeys, and we laugh, and we cry, and we get up, and we move forward. The key thing is that as an SMME, you need to own it. You need to own the fact that you'll never have enough revenue for the very, really expensive stuff. And you've got to be okay with that, unless you're a sole, consultant and you're pumping 50 mil a year. Yeah, then you've got great revenue coming in every month. But the general SMME out there, the Joe Soap out there, we have to watch our revenue. We have to protect our minds. We have to invest in ourselves, because we are the drivers 10 to 1. And we have to understand that when we go out and do ego purchases, that there's a cost to that. And by innovating and having innovation and adaptability means that we don't always need to rely on those tools. We can adapt away from them. So for example, if you don't have the money to have a design software on your PC, or you don't have the PC power to operate that, there's a way you can innovate around that. That's not an obstacle. It's an opportunity to innovate. And that is how we grow, I believe, as SMMEs.
Love that, because I mean, when I started, I was also wanted this shiny object. I wanted my website, and I wanted the credibility that they could go to a landing page and do the work on my behalf, and sell the sizzle on what Anissa is all about. It was a mistake. That was never meant to be the first point of call for me to invest in. I could have taken that money and spent it wisely, and I didn't. Do I look back now and regret it? No, because those are the very lessons that are important lessons for us to say, okay, how do I do it differently the next time? Because it was a lesson learned. And so you're going to be more discerning on how you will invest and what is important. And I think the idea around lean operations is also a way of innovating. I find entrepreneurs say, well, I don't have enough people in my team. Maybe, just maybe, if I hired more people. And often it's a one-man, two-man, maybe up to a five-man, and maybe maximum 10-man show in some of the bigger SMMEs and micros. But they always think, I need more tools, I need more resources. And like you've just said, where's the gift or the opportunity rather in revisiting everything in my business from an operational context? What resources am I using that is actually not necessary? And where can I become more lean and redirect that cost, that spend that I would have used in that area and place it somewhere else? Yeah. And maybe I don't need to be having someone permanent. Maybe I could be hiring a third party and from an advisory perspective or consultancy fee.
Yeah.
And how can I collaborate and partner? And that can become an innovative way for you to grow and scale your business. I mean, Brad and I have been talking, and I think, Brad, outside of our conversations, you also have other conversations with people, because we want to look at, if we have the same mission and similar values and the impact is we want to achieve the same outcome and objective, why not collaborate? Because that in and of itself is also innovation and adapting to a new way of working.
Yeah. It's critical. Part of your innovation and adapting is your networking. It's got to consistently evolve. And as you mature and as you get older as an SMME, that also changes how you approach that. And I mean, when you're young, you do things in a certain way. Young as a person, but young as a business owner, you do things a certain way. But, we all make mistakes. We all chase what we believe will make us happy. I just think as SMMEs, we don't really have the luxury of making too many of those mistakes. And I think in the beginning, if we can advocate, and if this can go out to any startup SMME and this can land with them, that they really got to understand that their success story is based on them and nothing, we don't want anything materialistic. It's based on them. What does it mean for them? And how does that translate the way they run their business? If they can just really work that out now, they're going to save bumping their heads or paying the school fees that they have to pay to get to where they are. But the beauty about being a business owner, especially a small business owner, is you can adapt really easily. It can be a decision made really quickly. If you're sitting in a corporate and it's a boardroom and you're running at a massive loss, it's very difficult to turn that around. But as an SMME, you can make instant decisions, cut back. Is it really necessary to take your client out for a full lunch? Are you just egoing spending, or can you just say to the client, you know what, let's just grab a coffee together? I've done that. I've cut back on that because I find myself going out and eating with my clients, costing me an arm and a leg, but I can't really see the value for my business there. I can have the same discussion over a cup of coffee. And being a savvy SMME, being an SMME that's savvy with their spend, clients actually appreciate that. They pick that up.
Brad, what I'd like to share with the audience here today, I mean, in the last week and a bit, I've had a couple of coaching conversations, and I'd like to just highlight what's coming up from a lot of these conversations is, how do I go and pitch differently? So how do I make sure I land this business or this tender or convert this proposal? Why would they choose me? Right? And it's a combination for me of a few things I'm picking up in these conversations. And it always is, do I really believe I'm worth and the value that I have to offer is going to be received on the other end? That's one direction of this. And the other one is as simple as, what is your A-game strategy?
Hmm.
What does an A game strategy look for you? An innovative A game strategy. And often they don't have that. So it is a matter of this is what I want to do, and they jump into action.
Mhm.
I feel innovation is also pausing and taking time out to reflect and gather insights as to one, where am I now? What have I done? Which marketing channel, social media platform have I been investing my time in? Has there been a return? If there hasn't been a return, hey, but hold on. If there's no return, that's depleted time and energy for no return. In the same way that you're saying those dinners or lunches or breakfasts, what's the return on that? So, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of some of the things that we are doing? Brad, are you there or are you frozen? Or you are there? I was just wondering if you're there. You were a bit frozen on the screen. And you are frozen again. So whilst we wait for Brad to come back, so some of the work we do with entrepreneurs is to really take a pause and a standstill and say, let's do a deep dive analysis and assessment of where exactly am I now? If this was my success story a while back, or what would success mean to me, is that still the case and do I need to adapt? Let me just quickly check in again with Brad. And for those that are here, is it Brad's connectivity or is it mine? Please enlighten me so that I don't think I'm talking to myself. Okay, it is definitely Brad because it looks like he's off the screen and out the studio. The time seems to be ticking still in studio for me, so it means I'm still on. So let's wait and see when he gets back. Are you trying to come back on? So let's continue the conversation. And innovation, again, is not, we're talking about innovation and adaptability and trying to really understand how do we innovate not only in new product and services, but how do we innovate in changing the way we do or operate within our businesses. But to do that, we were saying that you've got to take that pause and reflect because all of us, whether we small, medium enterprises, if we're in survival, we tend to want to just jump into action quickly because getting back to signing business is the top priority. We want to be able to close those deals, bring in more income. And then what we forget along the way is a robust strategy on, is this a sound strategy for us to go to market? Like we mentioned earlier on, is it the right channels that we are positioning ourselves in? And what is the niche we're talking to? I find a lot of entrepreneurs tend to try and be everything for everyone. So we know of somebody that might be in construction, and then they're in construction, but they try and do something else outside of construction. How are you then going to attract the right customer coming your way if you're not talking to those pain points and what you're solving for that customer? So please bear with me as I just check in to see what's happening with Brad. It looks like he might have connectivity issues because even the WhatsApp messages aren't going through. So we'll continue. Let's talk about adaptability. And I think Brad and I were saying earlier on, being an entrepreneur, it really does require radical resilience because when those deals are not closing, when that revenue is not coming in, we go into self-sabotage mode. It's very easy to want to give up. It's very easy at this point in time to say, well, I don't have the right tools. I don't have the right resources. I don't have enough people in my team to execute on this mission that I have. And then what happens is that we isolate ourselves and we're not necessarily adapting to our environment and saying, who is in my ecosystem that I can leverage? Who can I reach out to? And it doesn't mean that I need to be alone and figure things out by myself. So What can we do in those instances? It's what we spoke about earlier on. The adapting is not feeling like you need to work by yourself. Who in your ecosystem has that similar mission and purpose, and there are congruent values, and you so aligned with delivering on this particular intention, but your service offering is different? And how can you work together? How can you collaborate? And I found that when we pull in those different entrepreneurial ecosystems, whether it's another entrepreneur, whether it is as a supplier, pull them in. Whether it is getting onto these sort of platforms and saying, I need help. This is my mission. I want to touch so many lives. I want to improve service delivery in this area. I want to get this particular product to market, because if I do this, I'm impacting social change. Trust me, you will find people that are going to want to work with you. I am concerned about my co-host. So on this note, I feel that I'd like to just give him a call. So bear with me as I do that. Let's check in on where he is. And as I've always said, when we have these technology issues, this is life. This is part of having to adapt and figure out how to course correct and work around it. Not necessarily how do I invest in a new tool that's not going to do this? How do I get solar power? Because these distractions are going to happen. They're par for the course. Looks like it's just ringing. That was a data call. Let's see if I can get him on a normal voice call. Let's see. Those that are here, Imran Workshop and Nana Punu, and anyone on LinkedIn that has joined us. Anything you want to share in the interim while I'm waiting for Brad to come back? Okay, so Brad is not available. So let's talk about resilience. Let's talk about when the chips are down and you're not getting in as many clients. What do you need to do? I had the most empowering conversation with an entrepreneur last month, and today we had another check-in. And I am just in awe when I hear and I can be witness to their transformation, where they say, hold on, I'm not going to be a victim of what's not working. I'm not going to be stuck in the scarcity and lack in my business if my business is not generating that desired revenue that I wanted to, or close the amount of deals, or had the amount of tenders that wasn't successful. What else might I be doing? What are the assets in my business? And this particular woman, she's in her 60s, I might add, so she's a senior. She's 66 years young, and you know, she's wanting to hand over the reins eventually to her daughters. And so she's bringing them into the business and saying, how do we do things differently? And remember, these are young, her daughters are younger, and they think differently and they come up with different ideas. And so she's leveraging that. She's not just saying, well, I've been running this business for so many years and I'm going to do what's tried and tested. And because they work in the electrical service business and a bit of construction, she said, what else can we be doing? What I loved is how quickly they were willing to adapt. They have vehicles, reliable vehicles, which is their transport, and these are assets in their business. They quickly realize that whilst they're not necessarily quickly concluding or signing or being approved on these tenders, what else can they do? So they started hiring out these vehicles for other people's businesses. And that was a means of getting an income. They also have quite a huge plot, and there's a lot of material that was just lying there. And they were like, but hold on, this is money that's just lying there. So what can I do with that? I can try and go and sell it, see who has a need for it, generate some additional money from that. So whilst I'm not yet closing these big tenders, let's see how else. And that is part of adapting and innovation as well. Are they giving up and saying they're giving up on what success looks like to them? No. They are saying, in the meantime, let me diversify my offering. Now, again, I spoke about the niche and not diverting too much from your niche and not necessarily detracting of what the pains are that you're solving. But they went and looked critically, if I'm solving this, who can I bring in? And what's my differentiator? And we were talking about quality and standards in their business. We were talking about the fact that they have electricians that are registered. And you need to be looking at all of those things critically. What makes you stand out? And that is how you start adapting and innovating in a different way. So if my co-host doesn't join us anytime soon, and there aren't any much comments, I may very well be calling this. Otherwise, you're going to get bored in listening to my voice only today. And I just want to get back to some of the things that we did say. I want to share some stats that Brad shared in an article in context for today's conversation, right? We were saying, according to ResearchGate, which is a European commercial social networking site for researchers, they found that unlike larger enterprises, resources are obviously more limited for SMMEs. And it showed that 60% of SMMEs are working over 50 hours a week. 50 hours, right? 25% is actually exceeding 60 hours. And recent findings reveal that 60% of them is taking 3 weeks holidays or less annually, and 10% is foregoing their vacation altogether. Now, this long hours is almost like becoming the norm. And yesterday I had another encouraging conversation with an entrepreneur who, when I first met him, he was like getting in the trenches, hands dirty, touching here, touching there, working in the business and not on the business. And a year later, chatting to him, he says to me, he quickly realized that that mindset was not going to serve him. And that disproportionate amount of hours is going to cause burnout inevitably. And that is, if he's trying to be everything to everyone, he's not going to deliver and adapt to what the market is needing actually. So he discerned very quickly on saying, okay, so what do I need to do differently? And he zoomed in and became laser focused on what is it that what is my niche that I'm serving? And if I had to be doing these top 2, 3 things and investing the time in just those 3 areas that are critical to deliver the success story that I want in my business, that becomes where my energy goes, because that's the highest return of my energy and success. So I'm going to potentially conclude on that note. If there's anyone else that are here that want to share any lasting comments and insights or questions that you might have on today's conversation, I'm going to wait a couple of more minutes and then I'm going to end this live. In the meantime, I'm going to see if there is anything else that I'd like to share from Brad's reflections on that article. I think he highlights a critical thing around making sure that you focus on, am I connected to delivering on my why today? And the actions that I've put in place for my business for this particular day, for my week, the focus that I've given, is it purposeful? Is it delivering on serving that customer that I so want to impact? Is it giving the social impact that I want to deliver on? Is it touching lives of the people's lives that I want to touch? And that is a way to look at it critically and say, if it's not doing so, you are focusing on the wrong things and you need to change direction and navigate to a different approach and not stay in that comfort zone of doing the same thing every day and not getting a result anyway. And it requires cultivating that growth mindset, because we end up being stuck in a fixed mindset. And if it's not working in a particular way, we're not willing to divert. So on that note, I want to thank you for joining us here this week. I'm really sorry that Brad couldn't join us again, because I always love the exchange with him and his very valuable insights that he brings to the table in this segment. And we will pop back on again next month, the same time, more or less this time, month end, where we talk about the real challenges that entrepreneurs are facing. And being an entrepreneur myself, it's not an easy path to navigate, but we've got to show up every day, be consistent. And I see there's a message from Brad. And shame, he has no network. And that's on that note, we're going to conclude and say, thank you for joining us. We hold the mustard, as Brad says always, regardless of the challenges or roadblocks or obstacles on our path. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. And please share your comments. Please share your insights and let us know what are those topics you feel we should be bringing to the conversation next month. Until then, until next time, take care, be safe, and don't give up. Carry on. Keep calm and carry on. Bye for now.